Okay, as promised, here is the next project. This is a little something different. It's not what you expected. Yeah, it does look like I'm looking at a typical Victrola 4, the smallest Victrola. However, this one's been modified quite a bit. Somebody took this machine and made a horn machine out of it, an external horn machine out of it. I strongly suspect this was probably done to make a prop for the entertainment industry, motion pictures, maybe television, who knows. Whoever did it had a pretty good idea what they were doing. They understood the basic principles of phonographs of this era and how they worked. They used a mix of parts that seemed to be old Victor that I've seen, and some aftermarket stuff, and some fabrication. But basically, this machine is an early Victrola 4. Not early enough to have the metal grill, fortunately. You don't want to mess up one of those, but shortly thereafter. Very shortly thereafter. It has the very earliest motor. This motor goes back to the horn machines of the mid-aughts and all of that. I'm going to guess this is in 1912 and 1913, probably in 1912, maybe even a late 1911. Anyway, they wanted something that looked good from across the room, kind of looked like a horn machine of some kind, and they also apparently wanted it to play because they set it up to do so. It tracks the record correctly. It's not bad, no worse than the 4 was originally. Though it has a small horn, which appears to be a Victor original, one of the smaller machines. They used an aftermarket elbow. This is aluminum or possibly pot metal. None of this work appears to be recent. It looks like it was done some time ago. Couldn't tell you. It could have been 20, could have been 30, could have been 40. I don't really know. These things are like $80 today. This is probably for a Victor 2. I should try to match it with my Victor 2 or maybe Victor 3. But it works on this. They modified the back bracket, not to pipe sound through the cabinet as it would with the Victrola, but look what they've done here. Okay. Made a sleeve. The elbow goes right into that. And I don't know, it's metal too. Probably aluminum, could be steel. I didn't put a magnet on it. And it just sits on the back, and it's got the horn, coming in the usual way. From across the room on camera, you're probably not going to really notice that it's not a real machine. They put these Victor 2 style little fake columns. I don't know what that sticky stuff is they just put on the corners. When they've fallen off, of course, someone tried to fix it with what looks like grout. Pretty sure that is grout. That's okay. We'll get rid of that, and we'll glue them on properly with hide glue, as it should be. But no, it shouldn't be on this machine. But and they did a pretty good job carving them. I mean, look at them. They're pretty good. Yeah, they did a nice job on there. Or they pried them off of something else. I don't know, but they do fit really well on there. So I'm assuming they were custom made for this machine. Now we get to the problems. Unfortunately, the motor is suffering in a couple of different ways. One, the obvious one, we have a broken mainspring. As you can see, that thing is truly shattered. So no recovery there. These are the smallest motors Victors use for the tabletops. They get smaller yet for the portables, but well, not for the Victor Victrola 50. A version of this motor would go on to live in the Victor Victrola 50, but after the 50, like in the Victor Victrola 35 and so on, the motors do get smaller. But this is the smallest style of spring. This is, what was this? 1 inch by 13.5, I believe. There were several different versions of springs for these little motors, the smallest being like 9 feet long, the longest 15 feet long. The 15-footer, that will go into later versions of the Victrola 4, made after 1912, I think. 13 and up, maybe 14 and up, they got the longer spring, only a little bit longer, 13.5 to 15 feet. These had smaller spring barrels. These spring barrels are a little bit smaller than what they used later on. You might be able to fit a 15-foot spring in there. I don't know, but I'm not going to mess around trying to find out. I ordered a brand new spring. It's on the way for that, of the correct type for this motor. And now, strangely enough, when I took this apart, the motor completely fell apart. I mean, the whole spring barrel fell right off. See that bracket there? That bracket, whoops, there goes the broken bit. That bracket goes here, and then the shaft goes, you know, the spring barrel sits here. One screw, both screws were out. They were gone. I don't know how this one managed to escape, because it's trapped in there in the wood. This one was lying down in the cabinet. So I'm assuming they only had one screw holding it on. Maybe they lost one years back, didn't have a source to replace it. I don't know. Or just forgot it. That's a possibility too. I mean, it was locked in there with one screw, but it worked its way loose and it fell in there. And then this whole thing just was just hanging on there. And when I flipped the motor over, it just went boop, fell right off. I said, that's nice. So I'll find a screw and I'll fix that properly. But for now, you know, it's off good for repair. It's going to need the spring, and obviously it's going to need cleaning. This whole motor is a good screw. Now, the other problem is here. The governor has come apart. It needs new springs. It's missing a weight. The weight I'm going to source from my part supply. I have that somewhere. The springs, they're on the way. I ran out of springs. That's the same spring all of the Victrola governors use all the way up. I mean, there's nothing unusual there. I can see we have a bent bracket over here. It was pushed up by the screw right there. It was pushing against it, and it pushed it out of shape a little bit. That's not the end of the world. This is the speed control, and that I'm assuming was where I see it's got a brand new, well, not new, but it has a fresher looking friction leather in there. So somebody had taken care of that. So somebody obviously knew something about what they were doing. There's a little bit too much play there, but that's all right. That's not the end of the world. This older style motor, you can always tell the difference just looking at them. They're completely different than what they made later on. You know, more of a cast iron look to them. You know, a little more skeletalized and not as thick over here. Not that that's bad. There's nothing wrong. They're not bad motors. You know, and the newer style is not a bad motor. It's just different. That's all. They improved things to speed up production, make it cheaper to manufacture the motor, and easier. You know, this is a good motor. So was the ones they made later on. They all do one job. They only have one job to do. Spin that platter at 78 RPM under load. That's it. That's the only job this motor has. It doesn't do anything else. So let's take a look inside the cabinet. You see some of the parts. The reproducer was a mess. Oh, this is. I mean, first the back bracket that died many years ago. It's a Victrola number 2 they had on here, and that's fine. The diaphragm looks okay, but both of the springs are pretty well. They're both broken actually. Both springs are broken. The needle bar looks okay. Diaphragm gaskets were never changed. They are bad. That's all going to be taken care of. You know, that's all going to be rebuilt. You can see what they did on the front here. They used the doors to seal off the front. This style of cabinet had hinges here and here, the 2 little hinges. That was the first version of the number 4 cabinet. That disappears, I want to say 1915. I believe it was 1915. And all they did was just mount them flush here and glue them to the grill and the sides. As you can see, get that out of the way. They just glued it up. That's all they did. Closed it up, and they put those little columns there to hide the joint. But they left this. So, don't really know what we're going to be able to do with that. I don't have a piece of wood to fit in there that's going to, you know, match the patina of the rest of the machine. And not being a cabinet worker, it's not really the kind of thing I would do. You could see where the hinges were back there. That was for the motorboard. That was the motorboard. And this over here, this was your internal horn. It's still there. This was the internal horn for the machine. See some little debris down there. I don't see anything. Well, they really used a lot of glue down there, didn't they? They really did not want that door to come off. That's another issue here. That is not hide glue. I'm not sure what it is. My guess, I don't know. It's not Gorilla Glue, because I think Gorilla Glue might be a little too old. Look at that. You see it? That's the screw. That's the missing screw for this. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Don't fall over. Oh, yes. Okay, I'll fish that out of there later. It's right down there in the corner by the glue. Looks like it's stuck there. I don't know how. They must have dropped it at some point in the past when they worked on that motor. But how does that screw escape? There's no way for that screw to escape. It's right flush with the motor board. So they had to have the motor off and they dropped the screw editor. I don't know. I just don't know. Another problem. Let's just stick that in there for the moment. It's backwards, I know, but that's okay. Is this. Motorboard's in a couple pieces. Now, I don't know if that's by intent that they left it like that. I mean, it had a bit of a gap when it was on it. It was kind of like that. I don't know yet if that was intentional or if it just broke. You know, some they do that. These number 4s did not use a one piece of wood on the top. There were multiple pieces. However, usually the grain matches a little better than that. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I'm probably going to attempt to reglue it, clamp it and reglue it, and done that many times before on these 4s and 6s. And see what happens. What is going on over here? Wow, that's interesting. I don't know what's going on there. It's like they wrapped it with something. It's wrapped with something. I don't know. Wow. Okay, that's going to be eliminated entirely. I'm not even going to... That is like epoxied on there. That, fortunately... And look what happened to the spring. Ouch. Well, fortunately, I have quite a few of these later. I mean, they used this brake on everything. You know, all of these 4s and 6s had this. The 50s, a lot of different machines had this style of brake. So I have a bunch of them in my parts store. But wow, that's special. Yeah, it really is. As for the horn, it's a small horn. It does have a Victor decal on there that I'm fairly certain is original. It looks like it might have been painted at one time. Somebody painted it black. I'm pretty sure that's tin. You know, it's small horn. From one of Victor's earlier small machines. That horn is probably worth more than the whole machine, but, you know, that's what they used. There's the turntable back there. And the spring, of course, this is the older style where the lid is pressed right down in there. I like working with those. You know, there's no clips to mess with. There's no little tiny screws. And this style did work, but it probably cost them more money to make it that way. So they did away with it early on. You'll find this before 1911 or so. And we have an early tag that somebody's polished up. You see that a lot when they do this kind of stuff. Don't know if it's original to the machine. It might be. No idea. We will find out when I get into it a little bit more, you know, how nicely it plays and all of that stuff. But I see nothing that would stop this from playing. You know, it may be somebody's home creation or something out of a prop shop. I don't know. It seems a little too semi-professional, I want to say, to be out of a prop, you know, to be out of somebody's home workshop or some kid's woodshop project or anything like that. That this has all the hallmarks of someone who does this for a living. You know, makes props up and stuff like that. This is not one of those crapaphone things, you know, you see on eBay, made in Asia somewhere or India, wherever they're making them these days with a little portable motor in it, a portable phonographs motor in, stuff like that. You know, this is all vintage parts this is made from, you know, and someone spent some money on it. That, like I said, that elbow was not cheap. These are not cheap. These reproduction elbows are expensive. And time and labor to put into this. You know, someone ended up carving those corner posts and everything else. Someone really put some time and labor into this one. Gonna have to replace the little rubber feet under there because they're missing. That's normal. Those parts are on the way too. But that's a preliminary look at the Victrola 4 external horn phonograph. I don't know what to call it. You know, it's can't really call it a horn machine because it's not. It still has an internal horn. It's just not. The internal horn is just not being used. You know, and that's well, you know, it's interesting. You see these little creations like this sometimes, and sometimes they're really crude and really crap. And sometimes, like that Victrola 50 I have, that has a custom-made cabinet. So close to the original, it's only the graining of the oak that clues you in that it's not an original Victrola 50. You know, that probably took that guy 100 hours to make that. I don't know. You know, it's a skill level beyond me. I'm not a cabinet maker. I don't know how to, you know, I know a few tricks on cleaning finishes and re-gluing loose joints and stuff like that. I am not a carpenter or a cabinet maker. You know, I'm good with the metal parts, not so much. I don't refinish cabinets. I don't do any of that stuff. I leave that to those who are better equipped and experienced to handle it. You know, I don't want to see things ruined and everything else. And in my tiny little workshop here, I would quickly asphyxiate if I tried, you know, working with stains and coatings and, you know, what do you call it, stain removers or whatever they use to strip cabinet stripper. You'd find me stretched out on the floor, stoned or dead. So we're not going to do that. But over the next couple of weeks, I'll be working in this. It'll be about a week or so for the parts get here. And then I can at least take care of the mechanical end of things. I can tell this is going to benefit from a scrubbing with cotton cleanser for sure. You know, because this is really dirty. Yeah, that's what it's for. I mean, I'm not sponsored by anybody, and I get nothing from the cotton cleanser company, but I use their products to clean some real messes, and this is one of them. You can see how dark that is, and dusty and dirty, and that is years of storage, ingrained, you know, fingerprint oils and cigarette smoke. Everybody smoked back in the day. Cigar smoke, mouse crap. I mean, it's all ground in there in that finish, and it's got to come out. You know, we'll take care of the cleaning with the cotton cleanser. We'll feed the wood with the wood feeder that they provide, and then we'll polish it up, and it'll look pretty good, you know, again, at least from across the room. And it will play. When I'm done with this, this is going to be a playing machine. You know, you can crank out some tunes on it, if nothing else. And this actually had the flat crank still with it. What did I do with it? It's here somewhere, but I don't want to tear the whole desk apart looking for it. Yeah, a little flat crank in there. Oh, there it is. I put it up there. You know, parts alone, there's some good stuff on this. These tend to crack right here. And to find good ones is a little hard sometimes, and they're not cheap. You know, you price one of those things on eBay or something, you're looking at 45, 50 bucks. Unless you get lucky and someone doesn't know what it is. You know, these early female cranks. Especially little ones intended for small machines like this. And fortunately, those columns were not lost. That's always a problem with a lot of, you know, the Victor horn machines. Just like you see here, those columns are just glued on there. They're not carved to one big piece of wood or anything like that. They're glued on just like these ones are, usually a multiple pieces for each column. And if you lose something, then you're going to be paying. Or you either got to pay someone to replicate it, which is possible, just expensive, or you're going to be calling every phonograph guy in the country trying to find out if they have a derelict, you know, $2,000, $3,000, or $6,000 machine that they want to take some parts off the cabinet for you on. Good luck. That's not easy. And there we go. That's good for now. And we will have updates at a later date. GoPro, stop recording.